Hey, how's it going? I'm going to be presenting my product inventory for my CE361 project. I'm going to start out by just giving an overview of how the project functions. So I'll just be running the code, and then after I run the code and kind of demonstrate the user login and the product inventory, I will go on to explain how I use different object-oriented programming properties and event handling properties, and just using these requirements to fulfill or to achieve my product inventory, or achieve a working product inventory. Let's go ahead and begin by starting the product inventory, which brings us to a login. We want to log in for the admin first, so the admin username is jsmith, and this is the username and password is checked from a text file in the source files. So the users here is jsmith. We got our John Smith. This is his first name, his last name, his role, which is an admin, and his username and password. So let's just go ahead and log in for jsmith. Log in. So we can see we end up with user John Smith. That's his name, the user's name, and the role, and he is an admin. Awesome. Now, the summary and products tab for the product inventory are tabs for all users to access. So a normal user can access it, an associate can access it, admins can access it. The only difference is that these buttons are only available to certain users with, or it's only available to to users with certain roles. So an admin can do all of the above. It can add a category, add a product, and delete a product. And later I'll show with the other user logins that some of these are not available for normal users and associates. So first thing, let's start off by adding a category for the products. Let's say we want to add a category for well, maybe we can see what categories we have first, which we can see in our add products. So if we have this drop-down menu, we can see all our products, which is actually also from another text file in our source file. So these are our 5 categories as of now, and hey, we want to add another one. Let's go with dishware or silverware. Let's see here. Let's go with dishware. Add category. And it gives you a message box to ask you to confirm if you want to add this category. And yes, you do. So let's go ahead and add it. And if we check back to our text file, close it and refresh it, we can see that the dishware has been added to our text file, which is essentially our database. Going back to our product inventory, let's actually log out, which we can achieve by just pressing X, and our program will end. And we want to say login with another user, maybe not an admin this time. Let's log in with a normal user. So if in our text files for users, we see that we have one user that's a normal user. So that'd be S Jackson. Let's go ahead and log in for S Jackson, and say we accidentally typed an incorrect password and press enter. it will give you a message that has invalid username and password. Awesome. So let's just go ahead and put in the valid username and password. Looks like I spelled it wrong. There we go. And open up our product inventory. So summary is going to be the same as for the admin. We can have a scroll bar to see all our values, our seller, all the properties of the products, and the columns are all named here. And then again, we have also the user's name, first name, last name, as well as their role. Now we change to the products tab, and you can see there's already a few differences. One, a bright red message saying that normal users cannot make changes. So, hey, you don't have the authority to add a category, add a product, or delete a product. They only have the authority to view all the products. Cool. Now we can just exit out again and maybe log in with an associate. Run the code, and our associates, we go to our text file again. Associate is K Walker. K Walker. And when entering our password, we can enter the password and either click on this login button or just directly press enter, because we made a specific event for that. So to make it easier for the user to log in. Now, same thing as we mentioned earlier, the yada yada, username, role, and summary tab accessible to everyone, and product tab accessible to everyone, except another red flag, associates cannot add categories. But hey, these are still active, so we can still add a product, still delete a product, and let's go ahead and try these functions out. So add a product. Let's add a product from the category we actually just added. So dishware. Let's say a plate. Simple as that. Serial number. We'll give it a serial number that we want, as well as a department. Let's say ceramics, because we're assuming it's a ceramic bowl. And the price, $10–15. Let's go with $15. Quantity, let's say we have 200 in stock. Ship date, just input one for that. And then the seller and brand. Let's just say Silverware Inc. Let's just say there's a brand name Silverware, or just silver products. Cool. Add product, and if I don't know if you saw this, but another product popped up here, and we have a message box saying that a product has been added to the inventory, and that is okay. It's just a method of confirmation and notifying the user that a new product has been added. Look at that. Silver products, that's a seller brand, and plate. Cool. But let's say you accidentally inputted something you didn't necessarily want. So that's an error, like, ew, that's not right product. Add product. Our product has been added to the inventory. Yeah, let's say you add a product and you actually made a mistake and you want to delete this from the inventory. You just go ahead and delete product, and voila. And you can also delete it from any single row, so you just have to select which row you want to delete. You want to delete the microwave? Go ahead, delete the microwave. There you go. And one thing to mention is that when you add a product, it actually checks for errors. Let's say if you accidentally missed the seller and brand, and you added a product. Whoops, error, inputs cannot be blank and cannot contain spaces. So it's a red flag. It doesn't get added to the inventory, and you have to re-input, or you have to input the category you were missing, or the one you had an error for. So it also is an error if you have a space in your name, because in the text files, the properties are separated by spaces, and we split strings from using the space character. So that's that, and it's about it for the product inventory and the demonstration of my project. So now we'll go on to describe the code relating to this product inventory user form slash software program. And we do also want to hit these points to make sure we are utilizing efficient methods, object-oriented programming to develop this program. It'll create more organization and security for the program within writing in the program. So access levels for different functions and different classes and yada yada. So let's start off with classes as one of the first points to hit. So there's inherit classes, and let's also talk about inheritance and polymorphism. So the first class we have is the user class, which is written here. And the user has fields included here. So this user class has fields: first name, last name, role, username, and password. And for each individual field, we have getters and setters. And as we can see here, this is the constructor for the user class. And we did actually forget to have a constructor, so users can use that to define a user without initializing the fields. And the user class also includes some functions: is valid username, password, add category, add product, and delete product. And as we know, as a normal user, you cannot add a category, add a product, or delete a product. So if you do call these functions with this user, or just a normal user, it will end up with an error message saying that only admins can add a category, or add a product, or delete a product. And the point of having this virtual is so that we can override it for an associate. An associate inherits the class user. So it is the child class of user. User is the top level class, and it actually has two child classes, associate and admin. And this hierarchy demonstrates inheritance as well as polymorphism. And the admin is actually a child class of associate. So it goes user, associate, admin. That's the class hierarchy. And we do this because the admin can do whatever associates can do, and admins can do whatever users can do. So having this will easily organize specific functions that are overridden, as well as maintaining the same fields for their first name, last name, role, username, and password. And so for these overloaded functions, we see that you can actually add a product, and it uses the stream writer to write to files. If you wanted to add a new product, or you wanted to say delete, you would use the stream reader to kind of check where the product is that you want to delete, and then find that and erase the text file, so you can write to the file again without the product you want to delete. So we actually search the index of the product after splitting the array that is read from the products text file. And then we have our admin class. So we know that only admins can add category. So we define the overridden add category function for the admin. And for the admin, it reads, it writes the file using the stream reader to the category file. And so we fulfilled the requirements, or we fulfilled some of these. So we got classes, inheritance, polymorphism, as well as reading and writing from files. Now let's hit exception handling. As we discussed before, we have exception handling for products when you're adding a product, and let's say one of the fields are empty. As we can see here, we actually create a custom exception, which is the invalid add product exception. So this inherits the exception class, and it essentially calls the base class, which is the base constructor for the exception, and inputs the message for that for this exception that's being created. Yeah. Okay. So to kind of throw the exception, we throw the exception whenever the product name is nothing. So when you try and instantiate a product and the product names are not given, then that means you want to throw an exception. And also when the product name or any of the properties of the product contain a space, because that's how we parse it, and that's going to cause an error later on in the code. So that are the two options where we want to throw an exception. And I forgot to mention that we also define a product class with its fields being its properties. Now, when do we catch these exceptions? And when do we try to instantiate a product? That would be in adding a product user form. So in this user form, when a product is added, so when the product button is clicking, when the add product button is clicked, this event will allow us to try adding a product, or not adding a product, but instantiating an instance, or creating an instance of type product using the inputs given in this user form. So after trying this, if this causes an error, it'll catch the error, this invalid add product exception error, and it'll show the message error. So we call this message function, that is a method for this invalid add product exception class. Awesome, we got this exception handling, and we already demonstrated our GUI. And as we can see here, we have our add product GUI. This is the one we created and demonstrated in our code running, and we got our inventory user form as well as our login user form. So those are the three GUIs that we have created. And then to create this custom event handler, we have so many different events for like button.click, as we can see here. See delete product button. If the delete product button is clicked, then you want to delete the product. You call the method for the current user, and the current user is an instance of the user class, which is defined as a global class, which is defined in the global class. So this global class will hold all the global variables or global objects. So this is the global object current user, which will determine the first name, last name for the current user, as well as its role to kind of keep track of what the user can or cannot do. And for our custom event handler, we got a little bit off track. Our custom event handler is actually so that when you add a product from the add product user form, click this, you want to change the inventory user form here because you want to update this. But this form, or the form in the code, does not have access to the inventory user form data grid view because of the protection level. So we create a custom event in, I think it was in here. No, where was it? Inventory user form. I'm just going to find this custom event handler really quick. Don't quite remember where I put it. Let's see. Let's see. It's taking a while to find it. I think I put it in the, what was it? Add product user form. So oh, here we go. Okay. So this is the custom event handler. So we create a delegate, which is a reference to the a function, which is an event handler. So after kind of creating this event handler, custom event handler, using the delegate keyword, we have this function prod added. And so whenever this prod added is called, in the add product user form.cs, when the add button is clicked, you and the product is valid, it doesn't give an exception, then we actually call this exception handler. And this exception handler is found in inventory user form.cs, so we can actually access the data grid view file when that button is clicked. So essentially, this custom event handler is a event handler that activates, or that is called when the add product button in add product user form is clicked. And so the function we can see is right here. Sick. So that basically calls this, sorry, not this one, prod added to file, because up here we actually added, when we loaded the user form, we actually added an event. So you can see, oh, actually when we want to add a product, we create a new event, which we named prod added to file. So when you prod added to file, we update the data grid file, which is a function I created, which essentially clears the data grid file and reinserts everything from the text file so that the data grid view is updated. So that's about it for my project. I've got the GUI, the custom handler, read and write from files, use of class, inheritance, polymorphism, exception handling, and see what the time is at. 24 minutes, awesome. And one additional thing to add is that we also use an event of a key press to indicate when a user presses enter on password, it will automatically log in the user instead of the user having to actually physically click the login button, just to make things easier for the user. So that'll be all for my presentation.